Talent can open a door, but mindset decides whether you walk through it or turn back. Stay with me until the end. The final lessons will truly change your perspective. Talent gets applause, but mindset builds legacy. And I want you to really sit with that for a moment, because in a world obsessed with instant recognition, this truth often arrives too late. Talent is the spark that makes people notice you when you walk into a room, but mindset is the quiet fire that keeps you warm when the lights go out and no one is watching. I've seen it again and again. Gifted people who were praised early, celebrated loudly, told they were special, yet when life asked them to endure rejection, loneliness, or uncertainty, they collapsed under the weight of expectation. And then I've seen others, people who were overlooked, underestimated, even dismissed, rise slowly, steadily, almost invisibly, because they carried something deeper than skill. They carried belief. They carried resilience. They carried the courage to stay when it would have been easier to leave. Talent is like a beautiful instrument, but mindset is the musician who practices in the dark, who shows up even when the audience is gone, who keeps tuning the strings when the music sounds off. Without mindset, talent becomes fragile. It needs validation to survive. But with mindset, even the smallest ability can grow roots so deep that no storm can uproot it. This is why some people shine briefly and disappear, while others build lives that echo long after they've left the stage. Legacy is not built on how loudly the world claps for you. It's built on how consistently you choose growth when no one is clapping at all. Think about this. Talent loves comfort, but mindset is forged in discomfort. Talent performs when conditions are perfect. Mindset performs when everything feels uncertain. Talent says, "I'll try if I feel confident." Mindset says, "I'll try until confidence catches up." And here's the part that most people don't want to hear. Mindset is not something you're born with, it's something you earn. You earn it every time you get up after a quiet failure that no one posts about. You earn it when you keep learning after the praise stops. You earn it when you choose patience over panic, discipline over drama, faith over fear. There were moments in my life when talent opened doors, yes, but mindset decided whether I stayed in the room. When I walked into unfamiliar spaces, different cultures, new industries, I realized very quickly that talent alone doesn't protect you from doubt. It doesn't shield you from comparison. It doesn't save you from the voice inside your head that asks, "Do I belong here?" What saved me was mindset. The decision to trust the process even when the outcome was unclear, the willingness to start again without bitterness, the humility to learn, and the strength to remain soft in a world that often demands armor. Mindset is what teaches you that rejection is not a message about your worth. It's a redirection toward growth. It's what reminds you that consistency beats intensity, that devotion outlasts excitement, and that greatness is not a moment, it's a pattern. And here's a metaphor I carry with me. Talent is rain, but mindset is the soil. Rain can be abundant, but if the soil is shallow, nothing grows. When your mindset is shallow, impatient, reactive, dependent on praise, even the greatest opportunities wash away. But when your mindset is deep, grounded, and intentional, even a small amount of rain can create a forest. This is why mindset builds legacy. Legacy is not loud, it's layered. It's built in seasons, not moments. It's built when you choose alignment over approval, meaning over speed, and purpose over applause. And if you're listening to this thinking, "But what if I don't feel strong yet?" That's exactly where mindset begins. Mindset is not the absence of fear, it's the decision to move with fear without letting it drive. It's spiritual in nature because it requires trust. trust in timing, trust in growth, trust in the unseen work happening beneath the surface. When you nurture your mindset, you stop asking, "Am I talented enough?" and start asking, "Am I committed enough?" You stop chasing validation and start building values. You stop performing for acceptance and start working from authenticity. And I promise you, the world eventually responds to that energy. Not immediately, not always gently, but inevitably. Because consistency carries a frequency that life recognizes. And this is only the beginning. If this truth is stirring something in you, stay with me, because the lessons ahead go even deeper, and the next ones will challenge how you think about effort, discipline, and self-belief. Don't leave early, because the final points hold insights that could reshape how you approach your entire life. Talent may introduce you to the world, but mindset teaches the world how to remember you. Your mind learns before your life changes. And this truth is both uncomfortable and liberating, because it means you cannot outsource your growth to circumstances, luck, or timing. It begins inside you, quietly, long before the world offers proof. Most people wait for life to change so they can believe differently, but transformation works in the opposite direction. Your inner world is the blueprint. Your outer world is the construction site. Nothing appears in your life that your mind has not already rehearsed, feared, resisted, or allowed. I've learned this through moments where everything on the outside looked still, even stuck, while something profound was happening within me. There were seasons when opportunities hadn't arrived yet, doors hadn't opened, and progress felt invisible. But my mind was changing, my thinking was stretching, my identity was evolving. And that internal shift, though silent, was preparing me for realities I couldn't yet see. This is why impatience is a dangerous companion on the journey, because it convinces you that nothing is happening when in truth, everything is. The mind is like a muscle. It strengthens through repetition, resistance, and rest. You don't wake up one morning suddenly resilient or confident or courageous. You practice those states in thought long before you embody them in action. Every time you choose possibility over doubt, curiosity over fear, responsibility over blame, your mind learns a new language. And once the mind learns, life follows. Think of it like learning to swim. You don't jump into the deep end first. You train your body to trust the water. In the same way, your mind must learn to trust growth before life asks you to swim in deeper waters. I've seen people sabotage opportunities not because they lacked ability, but because their mind hadn't yet expanded to hold what they were given. Success arrived before their self-belief did, and the disconnect created fear, anxiety, even self-destruction. That's why mental preparation is sacred work. It's spiritual work. Because when you train your mind, you're not just changing thoughts, you're changing the way you relate to uncertainty, rejection, and possibility. You begin to understand that readiness is not a feeling, it's a decision. And waiting to feel ready is often just fear wearing a polite mask. The mind learns courage by practicing action. It learns confidence by surviving discomfort. It learns faith by walking forward without guarantees. Before every major shift in my life, there was an internal conversation that no one else heard. Moments where I had to decide whether to shrink to fit familiar spaces or expand into unknown ones. And expansion is always uncomfortable at first. Growth feels like confusion before it feels like clarity. It feels like vulnerability before it feels like strength. But the mind adapts, it always does. And once it does, life begins to mirror that adaptation. Suddenly, challenges feel navigable instead of overwhelming. Uncertainty feels like adventure instead of threat. Failure feels like information instead of shame. This is the quiet miracle of inner work. It changes how you interpret the same reality. Two people can experience the same obstacle, and one feels defeated while the other feels strengthened. The difference is not circumstance, it's conditioning. Your mind learns meaning before your life delivers outcomes. And this is where intention matters. If you constantly rehearse fear, your mind becomes fluent in limitation. If you constantly rehearse possibility, your mind becomes comfortable with expansion. This doesn't mean pretending everything is perfect or bypassing pain. It means choosing awareness over autopilot. It means noticing the stories you tell yourself when things don't go your way. Are they stories of defeat or stories of becoming? Because the mind believes what it hears repeatedly, especially when it comes from you. This is why words, thoughts, and self-dialogue are not small things. They are instructions. They are directions given to your nervous system, your choices, your future. When you start speaking to yourself with patience instead of pressure, with compassion instead of criticism, something shifts. You become safer with yourself. And when you feel safe internally, you become braver externally. Opportunities sense that energy. People sense it. Life responds to it. This is not mystical thinking. It's alignment. And alignment always precedes momentum. But listen carefully because this is important. Mental growth is not linear. Some days you will feel expansive and powerful, and other days you will feel small and uncertain again. That does not mean you're going backward. Learning is not erased by temporary doubt. Just like muscles don't disappear after one missed workout, your mindset doesn't vanish after one hard day. What matters is returning to awareness, returning to intention, returning to faith. Faith not as blind de-optimism, but as grounded trust that growth is happening even when progress is quiet. This is why comparison is such a distraction. When you compare your visible chapter 1 to someone else's visible chapter 10, your mind forgets its own pace, and growth always has a pace. You cannot rush readiness without creating fragility. Your mind needs time to stretch into new identities, new responsibilities, new levels of visibility. And when you honor that timing, life unfolds with less resistance. I promise you this, the life you desire is not ignoring you. It's waiting for your mind to finish learning what it needs to carry it well. And if this insight is resonating, stay with me, because the lessons ahead are even more powerful. The next truths will ask more of you. More honesty, more discipline, more courage. But they will also give you clarity you didn't know you were missing. Don't leave before the final points, because you might regret walking away just as understanding deepens. Our mind is already learning simply by listening, by reflecting, by staying present with these words. And one day, sooner than you think, your life will catch up to that learning. Quietly, unmistakably, and completely. Discipline is a spiritual practice, even though the world often misunderstands it as restriction, punishment, or rigidity, when in truth it is one of the highest forms of self-love you will ever practice. Discipline is not about being harsh with yourself. It is about being honest with yourself. It is the quiet promise you make to your future when no one is watching, the sacred agreement between who you are today and who you are becoming. I've learned that inspiration may light the spark, but discipline is what keeps the fire alive when the excitement fades and the road gets long. Anyone can show up when they feel motivated, when the applause is loud, when the results are immediate, but discipline shows up when it's silent, when it's boring, when it's uncomfortable, and when quitting would be easier. And there is something profoundly spiritual about choosing consistency over comfort, devotion over distraction. Discipline asks you to listen to a deeper voice than impulse, the voice of intention. It's the practice of saying, I trust myself enough to keep going, even when my emotions are uncertain. Think about prayer, meditation, or any sacred ritual. Their power doesn't come from intensity, it comes from repetition. You don't pray once and call it faith, you return to prayer again and again. Discipline works the same way. Each small repeated act becomes a form of worship toward the life you're building. And here's what most people miss. Discipline doesn't drain you, it stabilizes you. When your habits are intentional, your mind becomes calmer. When your effort is consistent, your confidence becomes quieter but stronger. Discipline removes the chaos of constant decision-making and replaces it with trust. Trust that you will do what you said you would do, even when no one is checking. I've had days when talent felt distant, when confidence felt fragile, when inspiration felt absent. But discipline carried me through those seasons with grace. It reminded me that my worth was not tied to my mood, and my future was not dependent on fleeting motivation. Discipline taught me humility. The humility to start at the beginning again and again, to practice without instant reward, to learn without immediate recognition. And humility is spiritual ground. It keeps you teachable. It keeps you aligned. It keeps you growing. Without discipline, ambition becomes chaotic. Dreams become exhausting. Potential becomes pressure. But with discipline, effort becomes grounded. Progress becomes steady, and growth becomes sustainable. Discipline is how you tell the universe, I am ready to receive more, not because I'm perfect, but because I'm committed. It is how you transform desire into devotion. And devotion is what separates wishful thinking from real change. Imagine a river, powerful not because it rushes wildly, but because it flows consistently in one direction. Discipline is that direction. It channels your energy so it doesn't scatter. It protects your focus in a world designed to fragment it. And yes, discipline will test you. It will ask you to wake up when you want to sleep, to practice when you want to scroll, to choose long-term growth over short-term comfort. But every time you choose discipline, you strengthen your self-trust. And self-trust is the foundation of confidence that cannot be shaken by external opinion. This is why discipline feels uncomfortable at first, because you are breaking contracts with your old self to honor promises to your future one. There were moments when discipline felt lonely, when saying no to distractions meant standing apart, when consistency felt invisible. But those were the moments shaping my character, not just my career. Discipline teaches you patience in a culture obsessed with speed. It teaches you depth in a world addicted to shortcuts. It teaches you presence in a time of constant noise. And spiritually, discipline brings you back to yourself. It reconnects you with your values. It reminds you that your life is not built in bursts of inspiration, but in quiet, daily choices. Even rest, when chosen intentionally, is a form of discipline. Knowing when to pause, when to recover, when to listen, that too is sacred. Discipline is not about doing more, it's about doing what matters with integrity. And when you begin to live that way, something shifts inside you. You stop chasing validation because your work feels anchored. You stop fearing failure because your effort is sincere. You stop doubting your path because your actions align with your purpose. And if this lesson is stirring something in you, stay, because the lessons ahead are even more powerful. The next truths will ask you to reframe failure, deepen self-awareness, and anchor your growth in gratitude. And purpose. Don't leave before the final points, because you may regret stepping away just as the journey reaches its most transformative depth. Discipline is not glamorous, but it is divine. It is how ordinary days become sacred steps. It is how potential becomes embodied. And when you honor discipline not as control but as commitment, you discover something extraordinary. That showing up for yourself again and again is one of the most powerful spiritual acts you will ever perform. Gratitude is what grounds greatness, and without it, success becomes loud, restless, and strangely empty, because when you rise without gratitude, you float, untethered, unstable, always afraid of falling. I've learned that gratitude is not a reaction to having more. It is the discipline of seeing clearly what already exists. It is awareness in its most human form. When life starts moving fast, when goals begin to materialize, when recognition grows, when expectations increase, gratitude becomes the anchor that keeps you rooted in reality instead of intoxicated by momentum. Without it, ambition turns brittle. You begin to confuse progress with worth, achievement with identity, and applause with belonging. Gratitude interrupts that illusion. It whispers, remember where you started, remember who helped you, remember who you were before the world noticed. And this remembering is not weakness, it is wisdom. I've seen how gratitude transforms pressure into privilege. When you're grateful, responsibility no longer feels like a burden, it feels like an opportunity to rise into your potential. Work becomes meaningful, effort becomes sacred. Even exhaustion feels purposeful because you understand why you're tired. Gratitude doesn't deny struggle, it contextualizes it. It reminds you that the very challenges you complain about are often evidence of growth. The long hours, the hard decisions, the uncomfortable conversations. These are signs that life trusts you with more. And when you see life that way, resentment loosens its grip. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what is this teaching me? That shift alone can change everything. Gratitude has a quiet power. It stabilizes your nervous system, softens your ego, and expands your capacity to receive without guilt or fear. When you're grateful, you don't cling to success because you're not afraid of losing it. You know you can build again. You don't compare yourself endlessly because you're present with your own path. You don't rush past moments because you understand that life is happening now, not someday. Gratitude teaches patience, not passive patience, but grounded patience. The kind that trusts timing without surrendering effort. Think of gratitude like roots beneath a tree. The taller the tree grows, the deeper the roots must go, or the whole thing collapses at the first strong wind. Greatness without gratitude is like height without depth, impressive from a distance, fragile up close. But when gratitude is present, growth becomes sustainable. You can rise without losing yourself. You can receive praise without being consumed by it. You can fail without being shattered. Gratitude makes success humane. It reminds you that you are still a student of life, no matter how far you've come. I found that gratitude also sharpens awareness. When you're grateful, you notice details others rush past. The people who show up quietly, the lessons hidden inside delays, the grace that carries you through moments you didn't think you'd survive. Gratitude turns memory into meaning. It allows you to look back, not with regret, but with reverence. Even pain becomes purposeful when you can say, "This shaped me." And here's something important. Gratitude is not performative. It's not about listing blessings while ignoring grief. It's about holding both with honesty. You can be grateful and still want more. You can appreciate the present and still work toward a future. Gratitude doesn't cancel ambition, it purifies it. It ensures that your hunger comes from inspiration, not emptiness. When you move through life with gratitude, people feel it. Your presence softens rooms. Your leadership feels safer. Your confidence feels grounded, not aggressive. Gratitude makes you magnetic because it signals abundance, not material abundance, but emotional and spiritual abundance. And abundance attracts opportunity, collaboration, trust. This is not coincidence, it's alignment. Gratitude aligns you with reality instead of fantasy. It keeps your feet on the ground while your vision reaches upward. I've also learned that gratitude is what keeps joy accessible. Without it, joy becomes conditional, postponed till the next milestone, the next win, the next validation. With gratitude, joy becomes available now, in small moments, in progress, not just arrival, in effort, not just outcome. And when joy is accessible, burnout loses its power. You begin to understand that fulfillment is not a destination, it's a way of walking. Gratitude teaches you how to walk well, even through uncertainty, even through transition, even through fear. And if you're listening closely, stay, because the lessons ahead are even more powerful. What comes next will tie gratitude to purpose in a way that may challenge how you define success entirely. Don't leave before the final points, because you may regret missing the moment where everything comes together. Gratitude is not a soft virtue, it is a stabilizing force. It keeps your spirit intact as your life expands. It reminds you that nothing is owned, everything is entrusted. And when you live with that awareness, greatness stops being about ego and starts becoming about impact. You move differently, you speak differently, you choose differently. Gratitude doesn't make you smaller, it makes you true. And in a world that rewards noise, truth is what endures. Self-awareness is the real power, because without it, success becomes accidental and growth becomes exhausting. But with it, even the most uncertain path begins to feel guided. Self-awareness is the moment you stop running on autopilot and start living with intention. It's the quiet, sometimes uncomfortable act of looking inward and asking yourself not just what am I doing, but why am I doing it? I've learned that most of our struggles are not caused by the world outside us, but by patterns inside us that we've never paused long enough to examine. We repeat habits, relationships, reactions, and fears, not because we are weak, but because we are unaware. And awareness is the first act of liberation. The moment you notice a pattern, it loses some of its power over you. Think of self-awareness like turning on a light in a dark room. The furniture was always there, but now you can move without hurting yourself. When you lack self-awareness, you mistake reaction for personality, wounds for identity, and coping mechanisms for truth. You say, "This is just how I am," without realizing that many of those behaviors were formed in moments when you were simply trying to survive. Self-awareness invites compassion into that realization. It doesn't shame you for who you've been, it gently introduces you to who you could become. And this is where real strength is born, not in denial, not in perfection, but in honest observation. I've had to confront parts of myself that were uncomfortable to acknowledge, the need for control when things felt uncertain, the urge to please when approval felt scarce, the impulse to armor up when vulnerability felt risky. And every time I noticed these patterns without judgment, something shifted. Awareness created space. Space to choose differently, space to respond instead of react, space to grow without self-betrayal. Self-awareness is deeply spiritual because it requires presence. You cannot become aware while rushing. You cannot hear your inner truth while drowning in noise. Awareness asks you to slow down long enough to listen to your body, your emotions, your intuition. Your body knows when something is misaligned long before your mind admits it. Tension, exhaustion, restlessness. These are messages, not inconveniences. Self-awareness teaches you to read them. And when you do, life stops feeling like something that happens to you and starts feeling like something you participate in consciously. This is why self-awareness is power. It returns authorship to you. You stop outsourcing your worth to outcomes, your peace to people, your direction to circumstance. You begin to recognize your triggers not as enemies but as teachers. Every trigger points to an unresolved story asking to be healed. And healing doesn't mean erasing the past. It means integrating it with wisdom. When you become aware of your fears, they no longer secretly run your decisions. When you become aware of your values, your choices become cleaner, quieter, and more aligned. You stop chasing what looks good and start choosing what feels true. Self-awareness also humbles you. It reminds you that growth is ongoing, not a destination you arrive at and declare complete. There is always another layer to understand, another reaction to soften, another belief to question. And that humility keeps you open. Open people evolve, closed people repeat. Awareness protects you from repeating cycles that look different on the surface but feel the same in your soul. And here's the paradox. Self-awareness doesn't make life easier, it makes you stronger. It doesn't remove challenges, it gives you tools to meet them without losing yourself. You still feel fear, disappointment, grief, but you're no longer consumed by them because you understand them. You witness your emotions instead of drowning in them. And that witnessing creates resilience. It's the difference between being caught in a storm and learning how to sail. When you are self-aware, you begin to notice how you speak to yourself when things go wrong. You notice whether your inner voice is harsh or kind, impatient or patient, shaming or supportive. And once you notice it, you can change it. That's power. Because the relationship you have with yourself shapes every other relationship in your life. Self-awareness also sharpens discernment. You begin to see the difference between intuition and fear, between desire and distraction, between alignment and attachment. You stop saying yes out of guilt and stop saying no out of fear. Your boundaries become clearer, not louder. And with clarity comes peace, not the absence of conflict, but the absence of inner contradiction. When your actions match your values, your nervous system relaxes. Life feels less like a performance and more like an expression. And if this insight is landing for you, stay with me, because the lessons ahead are even more powerful. What comes next will build on this awareness and take it into purpose and transformation. Don't leave before the final points because you might regret missing the moment when everything connects. Self-awareness is not about becoming self-obsessed. It's about becoming self-honest. And honesty is freedom. When you know yourself, you stop being easily shaken. You stop being easily manipulated. You stop being easily lost. You become rooted. And rooted people grow tall without fear of falling.